Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back
Merry Christmas, everybody!
We are so happy to have you back.
Squibber just goes back outside.
SpongeBob, what are you even doing here? This is not even your show.
And Squibber just goes out of the house.
He just basically breaks through the window. He just basically breaks through the window and just basically like explodes.
So hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Really Useful Podcast. I'm your host Monty, also known as OTPod7. I'm here with my co-host.
So Corda Diesel, hey everybody, how's it going? And Merry Christmas once again.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. It's still not Christmas by the time we're recording this, but by the time this airs, it's gonna be Christmas Day.
Way to ruin the surprise, dick.
Fuck you.
Way to give away the illusion, all right? Why don't you just tell the kids that Santa Claus ain't real?
He is real. Fuck you. I'm joking. So
I know.
So anyway, welcome back to another episode of the Really Useful Podcast, and today we're doing the very first spin-off book of this entire podcast.
Yep, that's right. We are going to be reading Once Upon a Christmas.
Once Upon a... Nah.
But no, yeah. So today we're reading, actually it's kind of interesting. We're actually going all the so just like Railway Series, published dates. We're going all the way far to 1984, the year when season 1 first came out with Thomas's Christmas Party. Now we're going by Railway Series timeline, and technically this book is supposed to come out a year after the events of Toby the Train mentioned.
Yeah, now you guys might be saying, what the heck, bros? Why are you skipping Gordon the Big End? Well, we're not skipping it per se. We're just basically going in chronological order by the Railway Series timeline, basically.
Which, don't think too hard about it, otherwise you're gonna hurt your brain.
Mm-hmm. So the history of this book is kind of fascinating. So Sequoia, you want to tell our fans about it?
I don't know too much about the production history offhand, but I do know some stuff. So sure, I'll at least give what I do know.
Yeah, then I'll add some. I'll add some. Don't worry.
Yeah. So for the longest time, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people thought this, for the longest time too. But if you remember, in season 1 and everything, Thomas's Christmas Party was basically the story that Britt and David wanted to make and everything, because we mentioned in the last episode that Mrs. Connolly's Christmas, was the first story not adapted into a full episode. They didn't mention it in the TV series, but it was the first time when Britt and David decided they didn't want to adapt it. So to compromise and everything, they wanted a Christmas story, and so they wanted a new Christmas story to go along, where basically all the answers are together and everything. And for the longest time, or at least I thought that the Wilbert Awdry actually came up with the idea first, and he showed and he gave Britt and David the book and everything, and they're just like, okay, yeah, this works. But no, actually, in terms of new information I just found out, Britt and David were the ones that actually wrote the plot synopsis for the episode first, and then they came up to Wilbur and everything and be like, hey, Wilbur, remember that contract we signed where basically we have to make sure you make the story first and then we adapted it? Well, we want you to come out of retirement and basically make a new story for us. And Wilbur's just looking at them and being like, I was enjoying my vacation on Hawaii, dicks.
and believe it or not, this is the last book he ever wrote before he passed away.
Yes, the very last, because in between his last Railway Series book that he wrote for a while, Tramway Engines, and during the production of season 1, he was actually not involved with the Railway Series for quite a very long time.
He did write 2 annuals in 1979 and 1980, which were the Thomas annuals, but they didn't have any new stories. It was basically just information, basically.
Pretty much, and during that time, Christopher was still taking over with the story. So I like to imagine that Britt and David probably didn't go to Christopher first because they read his stories and be like, these stories suck. Let's go to his father.
Well, to be fair, Christopher's stories, there are some Christopher stories that are really good, but there are ones that are just forgettable and sometimes frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm more or less joking and everything, because like I said, I never really read most of Chris's stories up until like I said, the last Chris story I did read was more about Thomas the Tank Engine / Thomas and the Missing Christmas Tree. After that, I just kind of stopped. I think it was just during that point where I was kind of getting sick of the Railway Series.
Well, it kind of makes sense if you think about it.
Yeah.
So
But pretty much like, once Britt and David, gave Wilbur, the information, he was just like, all right, fine, I guess I can make one more story, but that's it, no more.
I mean, he did. To be honest, I think Wilbert did like a copy paste from a TV episode to a book, and I think it worked out really well. But
I mean, in some ways, yes, and in some ways, no.
how so?
In some, no, don't get me wrong. In some parts where it's just like a pretty, I'm sure that like, because to be fair, like, we never really know for sure, like, what did Britt and David actually wrote originally before, like, they made the TV series version, of it. So, like, for all we know and everything, like, Wilbur probably took like some ideas into paper, but most of the other ideas, like, were mostly like, apart from like, memories that he remembers from like, the events of like Toby the Tram Engine and like, keeping like, the Railway series, universe in mind and everything. And, probably the other stuff like, was probably more or less his original ideas too. So,
Yeah, and
so
this
it's
is
kind of,
and this is the first book to introduce the new engine shed. Because if you guys don't know, around the time of Toby the Tram Engine, the Titmutt sheds were being rebuilt, and this is the first book to show them, fully finished and for the first time.
which to be honest, like, again, if you're going for like Railway series timeline, it kind of retcons it a little bit. Because pretty much, we don't really see, like, the new shed for a very long time and, like, in the Railway series timeline. So, like I said, for those that, like, want to stick to Railway series timeline, don't try not to think too much about it and you won't hurt your brain.
Yeah, I just when you said that, I kind of started thinking, and yeah, you're right actually, because I remember in Gordon the Big Engine and Paint Pots and Queens, the very first illustration, they're still in the old shed basically.
Yeah, because like I said, this was pretty much made before, like, the TV series was ever even thought of. Well, technically, because I know, like, I guess we could say this right now, like, because during the time, like, Gordon the Big Engine was being made and everything, this was when, like, they were first, the BBC is, like, was the first ones to try to attempt at, like, a Railway series. And, well, we all know how well that turned out.
It turned out so well. It turned out so well that the public liked it, and they actually made the second. Nah, just joking. It feels
nah.
If
They hit so much they set the BBC on fire.
it was horrible to the point where this is just ridiculous. This is just ridiculous. Like, it even there was, I think there was a murder, something going on about a murder trial, and the embarrassment actually made front headlines instead of that trial.
Oh, for a second there, I thought like I was about ready for you to say like there was a murder trial going on, and suddenly like
basically
it sounded like the prosecutors being like, hold up, I know this guy is a murderer, but did you hear what they did to the Railway series in the TV? That's the most despicable crime out there. Let this man go.
I think it was something of a trial, but the embarrassment, overshadowed it completely.
Okay. You know what? You had to fuck up real bad if, like, if basically you took the front, if basically you took the front page news of like a murder trial going on.
Yeah, and it feels so horribly that they just canceled it completely. And ever since then, they were hesitant to adapt the stories into television.
Yeah, pretty much.
There was another attempt with Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber. You know who he is, right?
I know a little bit about him, but not that much.
He's the one that he's like a composer, and he actually did musicals like Phantom of the Opera, Starlight Express, Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh yeah, that's right. Actually, I believe like Starlight Express was basically like based on like the Railway series in some way.
Yes, Starlight Express was inspired by the Railway series, and actually, Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber wanted to do a television series.
I do know that, and the reason that like Wilbur shot him down was because like they wanted the Americans to get involved in it, and Wilbur was just like, no.
Once the Americans get a hold of it, everything will go downhill, and sadly, he was right.
Yeah.
Because look what happened with All Engines Go.
Yeah. Wilbur's probably looking up at his grave, and it's just like, what did I done tell you, dipshits?
So before we get into the story, let's talk a little bit about Clive Spawn, because this is the very first book where we actually get to see, his illustrations in this podcast.
Yeah, in this podcast, like, this isn't the first time, like, for this isn't like the very first book where we see his illustrations. That's not until like the
Really
27th book, which is not going to be for a very long while.
So, what do you think of Clyde Spong's illustrations for this book, at least?
For this book, at least, like they were pretty fine and such. Like I don't really have too much of a problem with his illustrations. Although I'll be honest, like Clive Sponge's illustrations, sometimes they're hit and miss with me and everything. It just all depends on like how he does with the models of the engines and such.
I personally think Clyde Spong is an underrated a Railway Series illustrator. I think out of the four that illustrated the books, I think he's probably my second favorite.
Who's your first favorite?
John T. Kenny.
Oh, good pick.
Yeah, John T. Kenny. I do like Gumber and Edwards illustrations. I do love them as well. But there's something about John T. Kenny's illustrations that I just love them so much.
Well, get ready because once we get to season 2, we can start talking about him as much as we can.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to that.
Same
Nothing
here.
against C. Reginald Dalby. I think C. Reginald Dalby is good when he actually puts effort into his work.
When he actually puts effort and he actually starts listening, which 9 times out of 10 he doesn't listen.
Exactly. But, as for Clive Spong's illustrations in this book, I loved him, He did a really damn good job with the illustrations. Yeah, there were some hit or misses in some of them, but overall, I think he did a really damn good job. And this is the only book written, well, sort of, actually. This is the first out of only 2 books where it was a story written by the Reverend Wilbur Awdry and it was illustrated by Clive Spong, because in 1985, Thomas Comes to Breakfast was actually remade.
It was remade. It was actually expanded upon too.
Yeah, basically, and I think that was the version that Britt and David used as reference for the TV episode.
Which honestly, I would not be surprised if that was the case and such.
Yeah, because they didn't span on and bring Daisy to the series as well.
It did.
Yeah. So, shall we get into the story itself?
Alrighty.
I'll start.
Yeah, you're starting this time, so go ahead. Go ahead. Give a plot summary.
All right, Thomas's Christmas party. So the story begins after the events of Toby the Tram Engine, and Mrs. Kindly has come back from Bournemouth after she got better, and so to thank her for saving Thomas from a landslide was right.
Yes, actually, it was a landslide. So pretty much, after she saved him from having an accident and everything. Thomas and Toby were just like, hey, you know what? How about we give her a party and such?
A party as a thank you. A party as a thank you for helping Thomas. For helping Thomas. Saving Thomas.
Basically helping Thomas. Not crashing and making sure the passengers don't die.
Pretty much. And so they discuss it, but they can't do it on their shed in Farquhar because of the shed is too small. And then they decide to do it in the big engine shed that were just brand new. And so they discuss it with the Fat Controller. The Fat Controller agrees, and they decide on Boxing Day. However, on Christmas Day, something happened, and there was a big snowstorm, and Mrs. Kindly got snowed in. So the Fat Controller asks Thomas if he can rescue her. Thomas agrees, despite hating using his snowplow. Toby also volunteers. And so they go ahead and rescue Mrs. Kindly from her house, which was basically snowed in, along with Terrence. And then Percy takes Henrietta to the station where she's been decorated. So they take her back to the shed, and then basically they have a party, and everyone gets plastered with talking trains.
Pretty much.
And then the party ends, and the end.
No. Actually, now that you mentioned about them getting plastered, what do you think they got drunk off on? My money is probably on eggnogs.
Eggnog! No, not really. I basically see it. You know what? Probably eggnog or a little bit of a whiskey.
Whiskey. Now, Thomas, remember, kids. Make sure you don't drink whiskey, okay? All of you engines and kids are not young or not old enough to drink this yet. How do you think I put up with your stupid shenanigans every day?
Engines can't drink whiskey. Engines only drink water.
Well, technically, whiskey has to be made from some kind of water. I actually don't listen to me because I know jack shit about drinks.
Me neither. So So yeah, that's Thomas's Christmas party. A synopsis. So, all right. So, to be honest with you guys, I personally do like. I personally prefer the book over the TV episode. Nothing against the TV episode. The TV episode is great and all, but I just feel the book is, it spans upon, what actually happened and what actually happened and how they
It
decide.
definitely feels more, in a way, it definitely feels more complete than in terms of like the TV series, which again, like to defend the TV series and everything, like the TV series synopsis also does feel complete too. Like I said, there is a beginning, middle, and end. Although to be fair, like the middle does come off very fast and everything too, especially like the ending and everything. That I do see on how Thomas's Christmas Party, at least in terms of the TV series version, can be hit and miss for some and everything. I still have a soft spot for that episode because it's one of the Christmas episodes I grew up with watching and everything. But I do see the criticisms with the TV series version.
I do have a couple criticisms for the TV episode. Mainly is that it's just so short. It goes by really fast to the point where like, okay, is it over already? That was quick.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. It does feel like that at times, which again, in terms of like TV series, I think Missing Christmas Tree actually does up it a little bit. It actually does feel more like a proper story and stuff with the beginning, middle, and end, and it definitely does feel more better pace too.
And I remember back when I did my season 1 video on my old channel, I actually put that episode at number 1. But thinking about it, I might lower it down a little bit to probably a 2 or a 3 now.
I was gonna say I thought you were gonna lower it down to a 10 or something.
Nah, just a 2 or 3 because I guess I was being a little bit biased because a lot of people don't know this and Sequel knows this, but I haven't told anybody this. I have a bias towards Christmas stories.
Yeah, he basically does. Which I mean, to be fair, in some ways for me, if I was a little kid and everything, I'd probably be biased towards Christmas stories too and everything. And in some ways, I still do love me a good Christmas story, right around when the holidays are starting and everything.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Thomas and the Missing Christmas Tree is a good example of an episode that I really love to watch around Christmas time. And to be fair, I think Missing Christmas Tree is a much better story than Christmas Party, if you think about it.
In a way, yeah. Like I said, again, it's more for the TV series version because I haven't read the book in a while. But in terms of TV series version and everything, the story in that one is definitely much better paced than Christmas Party.
Yeah, I do like in the TV episode because they don't do this in the book version. But how the hell can you not do "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" at the end? That was really good. That was like the perfect way to end off the episode.
You mean in the book and everything?
In the TV episode, you know how they end with "We wish you."
Yeah. How in the TV episode, the end of the episode, Ringo, stating "We wish you a Merry Christmas." Where in the book version, it's just more you just say Merry Christmas and that's it.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, or for he's a jolly good fellow, basically.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I can kind of see why Wilbert didn't want to go with that ending and such, in some way, in terms of the TV series, it's a fine way to end it off and such. But to be fair, the ending of the book was also very sweet as well too. Especially with the big engines thanking Thomas, Percy, and Toby and everything for helping out, and it definitely does give off a very good, satisfying ending vibe. When you read the book and everything, I get the book major props for a really satisfying ending.
Yeah, and this is also the first time that Sodor is ever mentioned by name.
Yes, you are right.
And according to the letter that Sir Topham had sent Mrs. Kindly, it said Wellsworth, and that's actually the home of where Topham had one lives.
Pretty much, and not only that, it's also the first time in terms of Railway Series version that Lady Hat is also named as well.
And the first time the first time we actually see her, I believe.
I mean, we see her briefly, and in Trouble in Thomas, and Toby Trey mentioned where she's at the kit. I think it's the kitchen with her husband and such, opening the window and everything. But it's also the first time when we actually fully see her and such with her husband.
Yeah, pretty much. So I don't have too much to say on this story, so might as well give the highlights of the book. Just to so yeah, I can let you go.
Go ahead.
So, I think the major highlights of the book include, like I love the concept of the book, and I also love that Thomas actually decides to help Mrs. Kindly, even though he hates his snowplow,
Mm-hmm.
which is something the TV series loves to play with a lot. And I think the overall concept of the engines during a party for Mrs. Kindly as a thank you, it was a really sweet concept if you think about it.
It is like because I mean like because I mean like as like you said in the last story as well too, like Mrs. Kindly not only saved Thomas but basically saved like hundreds of lives, for all the people and everything, and like sure. I mean, sure. Like, what's your top had did in the end of the story? Like, was also grateful too. Like, they already given her like, an award and everything for like, going to the seaside to get better. They technically didn't have to do this if they didn't want to. But no, Thomas and Toby and even the rest of the entrants agreed to like, hey, she went out of her way to help us. So let's still let's still show her a big thank you and everything too. So it was actually, real sweet of them to like, actually plan this whole Christmas party out and everything. It definitely worked in the end.
Yes. So as for the final story that Wilbur Awdry ever wrote before he passed away, I think that he did a solid good job on this book, and I think this was a great way to end off his writing career.
I agree. I definitely do agree. Like I said, while the book is not, my most favorite of the whole book and everything, like, in terms of like, the final book, like, he was asked to write too and everything, like, he actually did a real solid job on like, translating the idea that like, Britt and David had on paper and like, putting it in book while also keeping like, his own timeline, in mind and everything too. Because, like you said too, like it would have been very easy for him just to put the TV series into the Railway series book and just completely forget about like his own timeline, like So I actually do like instead of I actually do like that he actually still cares enough about like his own Railway series timeline that he makes sure that like whatever he wrote in the book still fits like within his universe as well too.
Yeah, pretty much. So as for me, my rating for the book overall, well, the story I should say, or the book, whatever.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, it's gonna be the book overall, I think we forgot to mention this too. This is the first story where, like, this is the first book where, like, there's only one story in here, so, like, we don't have to worry about, like, making sure, whatever rating we give to the other three stories is gonna affect the overall grade. No, whatever rating we're gonna give the book, that's gonna be our overall grade for this book.
Yep. So as for me, I'm gonna give Thomas's Christmas Party. Let's see. Wow, this is gonna be tough. Uh, you know what? I'll give it an 8. An 8 out of 10.
All right, so that's still all right. That's still a solid B right there. You know what? I'll give it a B plus, since it's an 8. So that's a B plus for you.
All right, go ahead and give your thoughts on the book.
Alrighty. So, like I said, Thomas's Christmas Party and everything, it is a solid story and such. Like, again, like, what I do like, pretty much like what Bonnie said too. Like, Wilbert Awdry, took a look at like, what Britt and David had in mind and everything for the story, and he basically like, wrote down like, whatever they had in mind into the book. Now, like I also said, to Bonnie off screen and everything, we don't really know for sure like how much like how much of Britt and Davis' idea like was brought over to the book. Like we don't know how much did Audrey wrote down was like from Britt and Davis' version, and how much like was his own version and everything. So like we still have to also keep that in mind too when we're reviewing the book. But in terms of like whatever original idea Wilbur did wrote down and everything, like he did a real solid job. He did a real solid job of making the story feel like a story and everything. Like just the beginning, middle, and end. And like I said, the ending, like the actual ending to the book and everything is a really satisfying ending. Like you actually, I should say like the whole ending is just like a really good way like to end the book. Like starting from a party and everything, you really do get the sense of like hey, this is a real nice party going on. They're having fun.
I forgot to mention. There is actually one particular illustration that makes me laugh to death. It's
Is it the one where like the Fat Controller's covering his ears?
yes. Percy.
I was about ready to say that. 'Cause I was just like, wait, I said ending. Yeah, okay, I see it.
Yeah, because Percy's blowing his whistle and the Fat Controller's like covering his
And everyone's just like, oh, the Fat Controller's going deaf again.
Kind of makes me wonder. It kind of makes me wonder. Were the if I was in that universe, were the whistles sounding? Would the whistles sound different in the Railway series than in the TV episodes?
Given for how much Wilbur wants to make sure that his engines are as real or as close as they can to their counterpart. I would imagine that in the Railway series version, the whistles would probably sound close enough to wherever their counterparts are and such. But I could also see people because again, since the TV series it's being more popular than the books and everything, it's very easy for us to for us to pinpoint which whistle belongs to which engine and such by this point.
Yeah, pretty much. Whenever you hear like Thomas's whistle, that's Thomas, or if you hear James's whistle, that's James.
Pretty much.
Or if you hear a bell, that's Toby.
Yep.
So anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, like I said, the whole ending party and everything, it's pretty good. It feels like a party. It feels like everyone's having fun and everything. You feel like you're having fun, with the party as well too. You feel the excitement that when it comes to an end. Again, you definitely picture that quiet atmosphere about the entrants having a real good time and such, and as soon as all of them are happy and falling asleep, you're happy with them as well too. So again, I give major props for Wilbur writing that ending scene. In some way, as much as I do like the ending to the TV series version, I actually think the ending works a lot better in the book version than in the TV series.
How
in my
so?
opinion.
How so?
Because again, because in the book version, it actually does feel like a party and such too. There's actual party where people are gathering around and playing games or cracking jokes and such. Just having a ball. When in the TV series version, yeah, it's a party in some way, but all they really do is just say Merry Christmas and that's it. Party over, go home. And to be fair, the only one that's there, which again, I can understand, because again, given the budget that Britt and David had, they really couldn't afford a lot of people and such. But even still, for a party, it's really more about the engines and just Mrs. Kindly and Sir Topham Hatt. You don't really get to see I guess you do get to see the drivers and firemen interacting a little bit, but it just feels more kind of more saying thank you, and instead of it doesn't really give off a party vibe per se.
You know what? Something just came in my mind, and I just want to get your thoughts on it.
Sure, go ahead.
I feel like the TV episode feels like a thank you to the viewers for watching Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends for the first time.
Yeah, and actually, you know what? I actually do see where you're coming from, and I actually do agree with you in some way, because as we didn't know, or at least I'm pretty sure, British kids, watching the show back then probably didn't know, was Thomas going to get renewed for another season, or was this going to be his only time and in TV and everything. So I'm pretty sure Britt and David probably also thought too that just in case that Thomas didn't get picked up for season 2, that they wanted to make sure that season 1 felt like a finale of sorts. And what way to make it a finale than basically having all the engines being together as well too for a jolly time, which is Christmas and such.
And they also got Birdie as well in there.
Yeah, they also got Birdie, but no Terrence. Terrence is still back at Mrs. Kylie's cottage. He wasn't invited to the party. Fuck him.
And again, with a stupid smile on his face.
Yeah. He's not really. Well, technically, he has a smile on his face, but in the back of his mind, he's probably plotting all their murders at the back of the mind because he did not get invited to the party.
Terrence always has that stupid smile on his face. Thomas insulted him, and he's still like, "Oh, okay."
Well, I hope you sleep with one eye open tonight, then, Thomas. Because these caterpillar tracks are not just for show,
Oh man. But yeah, like I said, the TV episode feels like a thank you. It feels like a thank you to the viewers.
It does, it actually does, and for what it was trying to accomplish and everything, it does its job very well and everything. like I said, like I said, I do like the book and the TV series equally. But now that I think about it and everything, and actually, given my thoughts on the books, I actually do agree with you. I actually think like the book version is definitely much better than like the TV series version, just from more how like it was structured and everything in the end.
And it doesn't feel like it went by fast, unlike the episode it was
No,
based on.
no, no, it doesn't, and everything. Like it doesn't. Okay, I think that might be one like not necessarily criticism, just more a slight pick I had a little bit. While it doesn't feel like it's going fast per se, like there are definitely some moments where it does feel like not necessarily dragging on, but like there's also some moments where like not too much stuff happens per se. Like like particularly like with the rescue scene of Mrs. Kindly and everything. It did kind of feel like like it went on kind of fast in a sort of way. Like it didn't really feel like it didn't at least to me it didn't really feel satisfying. Like when
Yes,
Mrs.
I
Kindly is being
agree.
saved.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah, because pretty much like as soon as like they made a plan and everything, we just immediately cut back to Percy, and it's just like, well, hey, I want to know like did they get Mrs. Kindly out okay? Like what did they do in the end and everything? Like I mean, yeah, I'm glad that like Henrietta's getting decorated and such, but like what about Mrs. Kindly? Wasn't it supposed to be about her?
Yeah, the story with the story, but to be fair, I'll give them credit because
I mean,
I
like,
feel,
yeah. To be fair, like, I guess, like, even if you were to do that and everything, like, I'm sure, like, Audrey couldn't
it
probably think
probably
of
would
too
have it
much to
probably would have.
say.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
No, no. I was just gonna say, like, he probably wouldn't had that much, detail to give, like, on how Mrs. Kylie was being rescued anyway. Because, like, he pretty much did state it, like, what they were planning to do to bring Mrs. Kindly out of there. So I guess, like, in a way, they did their jobs, and now, like, it gives an excuse for us to go back to somewhere else. So.
And to be fair, I feel it kind of would have dragged on if had they gone, with them showing them rescuing Mrs. Kindly.
Yeah, pretty much. I think probably what all Wilbur probably would had to do was just probably say that like the man made a plan to like get Mrs. Kindly out. The plan worked, and Mrs. Kindly was back safe and sound. And now we cut to Henrietta with Percy.
Yeah.
It was actually fun fact. This is the first time we actually see Percy with Henrietta in terms of the Railway series.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, you're right because I don't think a double header they show Percy.
Uh, I don't believe so. No, actually, no, they don't. That was something they added to the TV series.
Yeah, that was only in Time for Trouble.
Yeah. Which actually, like, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but I actually kind of prefer a little bit to, like, in the TV series version about, like, Henrietta, being worried for Toby after he gets stranded and everything. But like I said, we're way ahead of that episode, so, like, we'll talk about it when we get to it.
We'll talk about it when we get to season 2.
Pretty much. But yeah, so as for me and everything, like, I still like this, I still like the story enough and such, like, I think it's a solid story and everything, a solid Christmas story, and again, like, for what Wilbert had to work off with, like Britt and Davis' idea, he did a really good job. Like he did a really good job putting her idea into a book that it just works real well. Like it's one of those books where it's just like it feels right to read at Christmas time. It definitely gives off the Christmas feel very well. The party, and like I said, the party ending scene was executed very well as well too. Illustrations were fine as well too. So for me, you know what? I'm gonna give my rating for this book a 7 out of 10, which is still a solid B for me. Which I think this book actually does rightfully deserve and everything. Like not the best book overall for me, but it's still a really good book that actually I wouldn't mind picking it up and read. Like from time to time.
And this is the first book in the terms of my Railway Series collection that I do not own a physical copy of as of yet.
No, he does not. I was gonna say, do you want to tell the story or
Yes.
should we skip?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's tell the story because everybody has to hear about this. Okay, so in January of 2022, at the very beginning of this year, when we greenlit the first season of the podcast, I ordered Thomas Christmas Party, the version that Wilbur wrote, and it was on eBay. There was a stock image of the original I think it was the original 1984 version, which if you guys remember, the original 1984 version had like it was a white cover with mistletoes around it. And what happened was I waited, and when I got it, guess what it was? I got the Buzz book version instead of the version I wanted, and I was furious about it.
So basically, he got scammed.
I got scammed, and I basically asked for a refund, and unfortunately, I only got half of the money, which kind of, to be fair, it's better than nothing, but I'm still kind of very angry about that.
Yeah.
I'll probably get a physical copy of it soon, but after that, I'm still kind of hesitant to buy the book again because I have a feeling that if I do it again, it'll happen.
Honestly, I think that's actually smart play right there.
But yeah, like I said, this is the first book of this entire. This is the first book we're talking about that I actually do not own a physical copy of as of yet.
Probably won't be the last two. So I'm pretty sure we'll probably have it again for a while.
Yeah, and as of right now, the most recent book I got was the finale book of the Railway series. So final thoughts on Thomas's Christmas Party?
Again, it's a really solid story and such. Again, not my most favorite and such. But in terms of a Christmas story and everything, and a story that Wilbert had to write for a TV series version of it, he did a really good job with it. It's still a solid book, and it's a perfect book to read during the Christmas time and such. So I definitely would actually recommend this book if if either you're not read it or if you're not or even if you don't own it, I definitely would actually recommend trying to find this book and own it if you can.
Yep. I agree with most of what you said. I highly recommend you guys get in this book because this book, and to be fair, I think this is the only one of Wilbert's books that is actually rare, I believe.
Yes, I think you might be right, although don't quote us on that.
Don't quote us on that, because not counting The Island of Sodor, Its People, History, and Railways, I think this is the second a book that Wilbert wrote that is actually pretty rare.
Well, considering your experience of getting the book, it might as well be rare then.
Yeah, because I'm actually might as well tell you guys I'm actually working on a cheat list that basically tells basically a price guide that tells everybody how rare is the book.
Just basically how rare the book is and how much you have to sell your soul in order to get it.
Yes, and there are some books that you might be shocked to learn that you might have to spend $1,000 on it.
You pretty much might as well just have to mortgage your house just to get a book.
So yeah, that was Thomas's Christmas Party. Well, we're almost there. One more episode to go.
Yep, the final episode of season 1,
which will be Gordon the Big Engine.
Gordon the Big Asshole.
Pretty much. I'm really looking forward to the finale. I'm actually a little bit sad that we're at the end already.
But it has been real fun, and like we said, depending on how well the first season will do and such, and how much we have fun with it too, most likely season 2 will be coming up very soon.
Season 2 will be coming out next year if season 1 does well in the months leading up to season 2.
Yeah. It also depends on how our own lives are doing as well too.
Pretty much. Exactly. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far. One more episode to go, and the next episode is the one where we're going to dedicate it to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Yep.
So yeah, I hope you guys had a fantastic Christmas, and for Gordon the Big Engine, we'll be seeing you in a couple days, which will be released on New Year's Eve. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you guys want to see more episodes, hit that subscribe button as well. Also, don't forget to check out our channels, OT7 for me, and Sakura Diesel for Sakoa. And he also has the gaming channel, which I'll also leave a link in the description below. So with that, Merry Christmas, guys. This has been Bonnie, along with my co-host,
Sakura the Diesel,
saying thank you for watching, and we'll be seeing you guys on New Year's Eve for Gordon the Big Engine, aka the final episode of Season 1 for the Really Useful Podcast. Take care, guys, and we'll be seeing you guys real soon.
Bye-bye.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.